What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Too Many Opinions podcast. This is Sarah.
This is Jeannie.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So, Jeannie, let's get into it. What's the episode for today? What's the topic?
So today's topic is growing up in a toxic ass environment.
Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of us may have experienced that and didn't even know we were experiencing it because it felt so normal.
Right.
So
It felt normal, but it didn't. Your soul didn't feel normal, but your body got used to it.
right, like it was just something. It was like regular, even though it really wasn't regular. It was like, what the heck? Can you give me some examples of some of the things that you feel like you experienced growing up in sort of like a semi-toxic environment? Because I'm assuming that it wasn't all bad.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have, I had great parents, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just that their upbringing affected my upbringing. So I want to kind of start with that. Well, first I could tell you, we'll start with that. We'll start with the fact that the way that they grew up, they didn't know better than to change it. And so that they brought that into raising me and my sister. Okay. So I'm learning that now. Before I used to just be pissed because it's like, why do I have to have parents, specifically a dad, like this? I don't want to just blame my dad. Also, my mom, I blamed her for not sticking up for herself like she should have.
Okay.
Hence who I am today. So some of the things were, if, like I said in a previous episode, if an adult my dad always told me, if an adult speaks, whether they are wrong or whether they are right, you shut up. If they tell you to do something, you do it. Obviously appropriate things. You know what I mean? Another thing that bothered me was specifically, and I don't care who in my family gets mad hearing this, but my family likes to, in Spanish it's called tapando el sol con un dedo, I think it is, which is like they try to hide everything. I don't know the translation in English, but basically they know there's something wrong, but they want to hide it because of what everybody else is going to think or say.
So they feel like they're going to be judged by like society or their friends or whatever.
Exactly. Okay. So if something's awfully wrong going on, they rather just, sweep it under the rug so that the world don't find out or so that people don't talk. I mean, you got to realize everybody has problems.
Yeah.
And so like, who cares if it's out there? But to them, it's like, oh no, like you got to sit up straight. If you're unhappy, you got to act like you're happy. And so those were some of the things that that sticks out to me right now that I just could not stand.
Okay. I feel like those are all things that could definitely affect you growing up if you don't take the proper steps to change those things, right? Like I feel like those things could all affect you into adulthood.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you have throughout this process, like growing up, changing, like have taken the time to recognize those toxic traits and try to fix them. So that way when you have your family, it's not passed on to them.
Right. But it's so embedded in me that
it's hard.
Just yesterday I was having a conversation with my friends like that you should really listen to your kids and their needs. Right?
Yeah.
Like that you should like, instead of saying to your kid, don't touch that. Why? Oh, because I said so. No, it's not because you said so.
Right.
It's because how about you explain to them that if they touch that candle, they might get burned.
It's dangerous.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than just said, because I said so. I'm your mom, you do what I say. Because that's going to make the kid just grow up heated and not know, like they're not going to know. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's going to be passed on. And so I was having a conversation with my friends yesterday and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, if my kid does something, I'm going to tell him because I said so. And I had to think about it like, damn, I'm continuing the same shit.
That cycle. And if you don't break that generational curse, it's going to continue and continue and continue.
But there's a fine line between being a parent and being a friend to your kid. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes, I mean, does a kid always need an explanation to everything, whether you say to an answer? I mean, it's like a question that they may have.
So I feel like that kind of goes into like gentle parenting almost. I don't know if you've seen that on TikTok, but it's basically where you give explanations and reasonings behind to everything. So if you're trying to teach your kids how to cook and they're like 2, 3, and that may sound crazy to most, but you're giving them like tools that aren't sharp but could cut through fruit and things like that, and you're bringing them to the stove and you're like, no, don't touch that, it's hot. Or they have like a glass jar of sauce and they like try to bang it on the table. They're giving like explanations as to why you can't do that. Like if you bang this glass and it breaks, it's going to cause a mess. Aside from a mess, you could get cut. It could be dangerous, and I see all these things on TikTok and I'm like, or even Instagram where parents are doing this. And I'm like, wow, I would never even think to do that, because my parents would just be like, don't touch that. Period. Like, that was it. And they'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, they'd slap my hand, like, don't touch that. That's not yours. You're not old enough to, like, use that.
But you don't think that kids should grow up with some sort? I feel like, all right, I don't like the fact that I grew up with so much fear, but I also don't regret growing up with a little bit of fear, because that always prevented me from doing a lot of wild. I mean, I did a lot of wild shit, but it also prevented me, like, that fear of God and that fear of disappointing my parents always prevented me from being, let's say, like a hoe. Like sleeping around. Or you know what I'm saying? Like,
just know that was a big one for me too. Like, disappointing my parents. That is, even now, I feel like disappointing my parents, like decisions I make, like, and at this point, like, I'm a grown woman. Why would I even be still concerned with what? But it's like embedded in us as like how we were brought up. Like, you cannot basically bring shame or embarrassment to your family. Like, that's crazy.
It's a lot of pressure.
And I also think, like, growing up in a Portuguese household, that as a daughter, you're raised differently 100% than as if you were raised, like, compared to my brothers, right? Like, for example, for me, like, I wouldn't consider it toxic, but I would definitely say that there were double standards. Like, my brothers growing up could go to parties. They could sleep out at their friend's house. They could have girls in their room. They could do all these things.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't do those things. That was, no.
Prohibited.
That was an absolutely not. My dad was like, He said 8 o'clock on the dot, everybody got to get out the house. Friends, whatever. When it was dinner time, there was no friends sitting at the dinner table. My dad was like, this is not a food bank. We are not feeding the whole neighborhood. Bring your friends home. Tell their kids, we'll wait until they leave to eat. I don't care if we're hungry like that. He was wild. But it's like, I get it, because we didn't have a lot of money either. You know what I mean? So it's like, we would be spreading it super thin. I have 3 brothers plus my parents. So it's like, we were just like regular. We were making it. You know what I mean? Like,
I wasn't allowed to go to anyone's house, but I was allowed to bring everyone to my house. Like, my dad did not care. That was something that I appreciated about him. He didn't care if he had to drive from Cranston to Warwick to Pawtucket to Central Falls to get my friends.
Really?
And drop them off.
Oh,
ask for no gas.
My dad and my mom were not picking up anybody. I had one friend who lived down the street that I could go to that they would drive me to. Other than that, no.
No, they were allowed. I just was not allowed to sleep or go nowhere.
Yeah, nothing like that. I couldn't go to no parties. My brothers could do that. My brothers, I had to go to Portuguese school. Like, I literally had to go to school after school and learn Portuguese, whereas my brothers, they didn't have to do that at all. I had to dance in the rancho, which is like a folklore in Portuguese. Like, I know you guys have that in this Hispanic culture as well, but it's like, those are things that I had to do that my parents didn't make my brothers do.
Did you ever confront your parents about this?
I mean, I didn't really see it back then. You know what I mean?
But today, as an adult, why the hell?
Oh, I mean, my dad was always afraid of me as a woman bringing shame, which I think is crazy, because as a daughter.
But the man can bring shame too.
Right, but I guess it's less because, if a guy. So I feel like it's all has to do with getting pregnant at a young age, you know what I mean? And it's like, my brothers, my dad would have been disappointed, but he would have been more disappointed if it was his daughter who came home pregnant.
So stupid.
Isn't that crazy? And it's like, I get it, because as women, we're more
fragile.
We're more likely for something to happen, in the sense of we could be put in a situation for rape, sexual assault, abduction. You never know, a whole bunch of things. So it's I get that part and why they were so strict, but at the same time, I'm like, damn, I felt like I didn't really get to experience those things that high schoolers experience, like the house parties. And
you got to experience it after.
Oh, I sure did. When 18 hit, your girl was like, all right. My dad told me, he's like, if you want to live in this house, you need to follow these rules. And I was already 18. I was like, I gotta go. Go. I need my own place. And at that point, I got my own apartment. I loved them to death. I respected them. But those were my options. Either stay in this house or do these, follow these rules, or you need to get your own place. You want to be an adult, you need to act like one. That's what he used to tell me.
Well, let me ask you this. You have a son.
Yeah.
What if you have a daughter?
Oh my God. I can't even
what
imagine.
Would happen? How would you raise it? Would you raise them the same?
So I would raise them the same.
You see?
Well, that double standard, I think, would apply at least a little bit. But I would give her more education, and my mom was very transparent with me in that sense. Like, my dad didn't really go through those things, but my mom laid it very clear. Like, even at she would tell me, like, embed it in my brain from like junior high through high school into college, like, you don't need a man for anything. Whatever you want to do in life, and my grandmother would say the same thing to me. They'd be in the car and they'd be preaching this to me. Whatever you say, like, whatever you go through in life, you don't need a man to support you to get there. Mm-hmm. If you want to go to school, you can do it by yourself. If you want to own a home, you can do it by yourself. And it's like, those things have been what
made you.
Yeah, made me me, because I would remind myself of that. But in that moment, when I think back to childhood and like growing up in those kind of like toxic environments, at some point my dad would be like, do as I say, not as I do. I'd ask for something, and then he'd be like, I'm the parent, you do as I say, you don't ask
because I said so.
Right, because I said
That's
so.
That's a trigger for me.
Right, and
because
I'm like,
I said so.
Okay, so then I'd be like, oh, Dad, I want to do this, and he'd be like, no, and my mom would be like, Sarah, you remember what I told you?
Right.
Not to go against my dad, but if I was like, oh, I want to get this car at 16, and my dad was like, oh, no, you can't get it, blah, blah, blah. And my dad would say no, like, he's not going to put me in the position to help me. My mom would be in the background and be like, you remember what I said to you?
You could do it yourself.
You don't need no man. And I love my dad and I love my mom, but she'd tell me that. So I went to work, I'd work extra and I do it. But it was like, damn. Whereas like my brothers, I feel like they didn't really have that same experience.
Yeah. In a Dominican household though, they don't explain things to you. Like my mom never explained to me, this is how you have a baby.
Wow.
This is how it's always, don't come out pregnant or you're out.
Holy shit. That was definitely big in my house. Like my dad told me straight out that if you was to get pregnant at a young age, you have to find out, you need to act like you were adult enough to go have sex. So you need to be adult enough to go find a place to live and take care of your child.
Surprisingly, my dad cussed my mom out for that. Like,
no way.
Yeah, he was like, if she comes out pregnant, she's staying. Like, you know what I mean? Which I found shocking.
Wow.
And I found shocking that my mom would say that. I mean, I know she wouldn't have kicked me out, but back to the point where like they just don't. It doesn't matter what it is. A Hispanic household, a Dominican household, they're not going to explain to you why you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's just no, because I said so. Period. I don't have to explain anything. I didn't know anything. I just knew I can't do it. Why? Because I can't.
So there was like no room for negotiation in your
no, God forbid.
So you'd get punished if you even asked.
Absolutely.
So like, okay, so let's give an example. You wanted to go somewhere with your friends, like to the mall, to the movies, whatever. You passed all your grades, like you had tests, you passed all of them flying colors. Mm-hmm. You went to your parents and like, oh, can I go here? They're like, no. And you're like, oh, but I literally did so good in school.
There was no such thing as I literally did so good in school. There's no such thing as me opening my mouth, negotiating. It was just me turning around, crying, going to my room. There was no such thing as me. But mom, I did so good and I got straight A's. They don't give a damn.
Oh my God.
It's like I'm supposed to get A's. I'm supposed to do the dishes. You know what I'm saying? There's no reward for what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
But it's like your child. You know what I mean?
There's no such thing.
So I feel like I give my parents that. Well, more my mom, because if my dad said no, it was no. But if my mom was like, no, I could be like, but ma, come on. Like I did, like
no.
I got 100. I did, my room's clean. Like, please, can I go? And then it'd be like a little negotiation where she'd be like, all right, but you can only go for a couple hours. You can't stay all night. I'll drop you off and pick you up.
No. I feel like the older that I got, they gave me a little bit of leeway, a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, but nothing like drastic. Like I got to go to the movies with my friend and be home by 9, like stuff like that. But it wasn't like, and it was with my age. It wasn't because I did good or because I was always a good kid.
Right.
And I got pretty good grades but they were just so worried all the damn time that that's just what it was. They never gave us.
And what were they worried about?
Something happening to us.
Just like sexual assault, rape, abduction, pregnancy. Yeah, that shit is real.
It wasn't, I don't think it was about them not trusting us.
No, it's everybody else.
It was just everybody else. They were
so true.
afraid. But it sucks because now me and my sister grew up afraid of everything. It's always like I can't think about going on vacation and I'm thinking of what if something happens or what if this and what if that. It's like a paranoia. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's crazy is like I hear you say that and it's like in my younger age before I was a mom, and I've only been a mom for about a year or so. Mm-hmm. I've traveled to places, Bermuda. Like I've literally gone places by myself, stayed weeks, and not fazed at all, not questioning what could happen to me. Up and moved to New York by myself, not questioning anything. Just like, all right, okay, you're new. Okay, yeah, I trust you. We're all gonna be family. Like not a clue. Like just meeting all these random people and just living my life. But now as a mom, I had recently traveled, right? Mm-hmm. While I had a son. And when I tell you, when I got to the airport and was in the taxi cab, in that moment, I've never been more nervous and panicked in my whole life. I'm like, I'm going to get taken. I'm going to get abducted right here.
Is it because you know your son needs you?
Yeah. And I never felt that before. I guess I was like so like free that it didn't bother me. But now that I had a son, I was like, oh my God. Right. If something happens to me, what's going to happen to my son? Like, you know what I mean? He has a great dad. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But his mom, you know what I mean? Like, he needs both. He needs
his dad and he needs his mom.
Right. He needs both. So I'm like, oh my God. Am I gonna get kidnapped right now? And then I'm thinking in my head, like, well, I'm like, I know how to fight, so
it is what it is, so
right? We're gonna have to go head up in here. Like, oh, I'm not going down without a fight. I don't care where I am.
Right.
So yes,
I did see something also on TikTok that kind of woke me up. Yes. So guilt tripping in a Hispanic household, Dominican to be exact, they love to guilt trip you. Like, can you please make an appointment for me? Because it's like, Ma, I can't right now. Wow, I'm your mom. And you're going to do that to me the way you're talking to me. That's crazy. I did this and I did that for you. You can't even call to make an appointment for me. It's like, bro, when are you going to understand that now I am an adult and I'm not on that time? I have my own things to take care of. And then they want to make you feel like shit about it. Because every single time I get into any kind of altercation with my mom, I feel like like the shittiest daughter. And it's like, bro, maybe it's because like right now I cannot do it. Maybe I'm at work right now. Right. Or maybe I'm here or maybe I'm there. And it's like they have this sense of like they forget that you're also an adult now and that you're still a child, and it's like you have no life and it's like you got to drop everything for them. Right. And that's not cool.
That's not cool. I really can't relate to that. My parents never guilt tripped me. I can't even I
think it's also because your parents are white.
Yeah.
So they can make an appointment for themselves. They can go somewhere and order a cake. They can do whatever. Like our parents speak Spanish so they need us. You know what I'm saying? But in the 20, 30, 40, 50 years that you've been here, you haven't learned how to say you know what I'm saying? My parents defend themselves, but it's like we owe them.
So let me ask you a question, right? So you bring that up, right? That's you as an adult right now. But as a kid, were you obligated to also translate for them? Girl. And then if you did not do it, were you in trouble?
Sorry, guys. Sometimes I didn't even know what the hell I was translating, and I just had to kind of make it up in my head, like, because I'm a kid. I don't know what
words are or medical stuff,
X-rays and all this crap, and especially for my grandma, bro.
Oh my god.
I had to take like 2 city buses with my grandma to take her to appointments at like 8, 9. Translate all these diabetic terms to her that I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. She's been probably putting more insulin in her body than she was supposed to.
Jeannie.
Straight up. Like,
because you didn't know, but it's
I didn't know, and I had
that was expected of you. And you were just a kid, so how were you supposed to know any better?
That's expected of you.
Just know, I feel like that's so unfair because that's an unrealistic, like, expectation set on you. Like, you're just a kid. You're supposed to be enjoying life, playing with toys, Barbie dolls. Girl. Literally living your best life.
We're taught to just clean the house.
Cook.
Cook. My mom wasn't really fucking with me in the kitchen too much, but cook, clean the house. Like they in a Hispanic household, they groom you to be a wife. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Like that's what it is.
Wow.
And so like, for example, my mom always taught me to like serve the man. Like, oh, you have to serve, because my dad would come home from work, put his dirty ass feet on the couch.
Oh no.
And my mom would have to come 2 jobs, 3 jobs, do the laundry, no help bringing up the laundry upstairs. And it's not to air my dad out. I love my dad to death, but this is what I grew up. This is the truth. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my mom had to do that. Come home, cook a meal for me, cook a meal for my dad, cook a meal for my sister, because all 3 of us didn't like the same shit. Okay?
Oh, wow.
And now that she sees me cooking for my boyfriend, she'll be like, oh, you're not going to. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not going to serve him. Sometimes when I feel like serving him, I will. But for the most part, if I cooked, you best believe I'm like eating while telling him, yo, the food's ready. Oh, because we ain't doing this. And I grew up strong with a strong ass attitude because I refused to be anything like my mom was when she was with my dad. Right. Absolutely not.
No, that's crazy. That was not what dinner time was like at my house. My parents were 100% a team. Like, my dad worked just as much, even though he would just come home from work. Like, he would make sure the table was set, have us all sit down together. We would literally sit down and eat. Not one person was served before the other. We would like say grace. We'd sit together. We would all serve. Like, one person would start at one end of the table, eat that, and then we'd like rotate the plates.
But what would you do? Like, would you guys talk?
While we ate? No, my dad was like strictly about the food. My dad was, we would sit down to eat. We would say, oh, thank you for our food, whatever, quick grace, you know what I mean? And then we would pass the plates. We would all expect to eat. And then if we were talking too much, my dad would look at us like, we're eating.
I have no idea what that dynamic is like. I have no idea. That's why in my head, I'm like, what would you guys even talk about when you would?
Yeah.
It'd just be silence and you guys are just eating?
Pretty much. And then once we were done, then we would talk. You know what I mean?
But like about what?
Like, oh, how was your day, Dad? He'd be like, oh, how was school? Blah, blah, blah. Did you go to soccer practice?
That's like real deal, like Disney Channel.
That's what it was. That's really what it was for me. You know what I mean?
I'm like shocked.
But then in the same breath, my dad, like if there was something, if all like say, because like I said, we weren't rich growing up, right? So my mom would cook, and if it was gone and my dad had extra on his plate and we tried to eat off his plate, my dad would be with his fork like, don't be coming over here. Like he was not letting us eat off his plate. But then as we got older, I was his little girl, so I like sneaked my fork in there when he'd be looking away, and he'd look at me and I just like eat it real quick and shit. But yeah, that was what was expected. But 8 o'clock came, I'm telling you, there was no friends, nothing. Like we had to be sitting down at the table ready to go. My dad was not playing games. Till this day, he does not play.
That's crazy. That's like so unimaginable to me, because we would come home, we would do our homework, we would whatever. My mom would cook. I would eat in my room or in the sala or in the living room. My sister will eat wherever the hell she wants. My dad was always in front of the TV eating his food, and my mom would continue to clean it. I don't even know when my mom would eat.
Oh, we could not eat on the couch whatsoever. That was like forbidden. That was forbidden. If we would do that, we would literally, my dad would be spanking our ass. No bullshit. You know what I mean? So now as an adult, where do you think my go-to is to eat dinner?
At the
couch watching TV. Like this is life. Like I feel like I'm living so good. Like wow, this is so cool.
With me, it's like I wish we had what you had. I feel like for me and my future family, that's definitely gonna be
that's the goal.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Also, my last point. Let me look at my notes one more time, guys. Okay, I like this one too. It's not that I'm being disrespectful. This is a message to the adults and the all those people. It's not that I'm being disrespectful. It's that you trigger me. You need to learn, and I need to teach you what triggers me about you. For example, when my dad says ahora, meaning now, that will send me to hell and back, bro.
Really?
Anybody, actually. It doesn't have to be my dad. If somebody tells me, pass me that right now, like something in me is gonna like wanna just jump out of my body and just strangle you.
Wow.
Do not tell me ahora. Do not tell me that.
Really?
Because it's not like, if you see me doing my homework or something, I'll say it in Spanish, how I used to say it. Búscame un vaso de agua. Ahora. And it's like, yo, even saying it, it makes me wanna like, bro, it's like, so it's like that, like every single time like that your kid jumps at you, and I don't know if you're older watching this, it's because you're triggering them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's things that you have to be mindful and respectful. And I'm working on showing my parents these are my triggers. Don't do that, because you're going to see a different side of me real quick. Don't do that. I'm also willing to teach them. I want to start teaching my parents that these are the triggers. This is why this is a trigger, because when I was little, so and so and so, and this and this and that happened. So don't trigger me anymore if you don't want to see that nasty side of me. Or also, if you know your triggers, this is kind of an advice to you. If you know your triggers and you know that your parents are not going to change, get out. Because I know Steve, my dad is not going to change. He is who he is, and I'm starting to respect him that way. But now I know that if he's starting to go down a path that I know is going to trigger me, I need to exit and flee, because I don't want to disrespect. I don't want to disrespect my parent, and I will.
Yeah.
And I have. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like I can definitely relate to that too, because I definitely have some triggers. I feel like one of my triggers, like growing up with my dad, was that he embedded in my brain that basically the only way that you were going to be successful as a woman is if you became a nurse, because of how he was raised. Like that was the only career for a woman that would be successful. And you would be able to thrive, make money, buy a house, do the things you want to do, because there would just be numerous hours that you could work, whatever. And it's like, Dad, I love you so much, but if you hear this, this is what it is. And I used to look at him and be like, Dad, that's not the only way I'm going to be successful. I'm like, I don't like blood. So it'd be like, when he would tell me like, well, that's not going to bring you to where it would be. So I feel like anytime that he would like almost question my ability to tackle something, that would put the biggest fire under my ass to make sure that I prove him wrong. Like, oh, you don't think that I can do it like this? Well, watch me. Watch. So anytime there's a thing where it's like he's questioning me, I'm going to be like, Dad, do we really need to go through this?
Right, because now I'm going to do it on purpose.
Because now I'm going to go and make sure that I show you that either it's this, and this, and now we're going to be sitting here like, he's going to look back like, wow, you really did that. And I'm like, yeah, well, if you would have supported me, I wouldn't have had to go this hard. But then I'm like, oh, maybe he does it on purpose because he knows that if he says that to me, that it's going to get me going.
Reverse psychology.
I'm like, oh, he's way smarter than he thinks. But yeah. Okay, so I have one last question. I'm just looking at my notes right here. So before we get into sort of like wrapping it up, I wanted to know what your standpoint is for like, do you forgive family who has disrespected you? Or do you like completely cut them off? Like, what is your take on that?
My take is tune in to the next episode to hear my answer to that because it's going to be a good one.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it. So until the next time, it's been real, y'all. Yeah.
We'll see you later.
See you later. Bye.